Hello there, people, and welcome to another episode of Flight Box. My name is Ray. Thank you so much for joining me. Talking to you on a Sunday instead of a Saturday, if you follow the schedule of this at all. I know a lot of you just wait until it shows up in the queue and then listen to the next episode, but I try to stay on schedule as best as I can. But this original episode of Flight Box, talking about Peacemaker Season 2, Episode 2, was originally supposed to be on Saturday, but yeah, college football started. I'm just going to be 100% with you. College football started, and as many of you may or may not know, I'm a huge Michigan fan, and it was Bryce Underwood's debut as a true freshman last night, and so, and that, plus a whole afternoon slate of games. What did I watch yesterday? I watched Alabama and Florida State. That was awesome. Florida State beating Alabama. Sorry, Scott. But yeah, they watched that game, and then I think the afternoon game, which one of those did I watch? Trying to remember. No, that was the afternoon game. No, the first game that I watched was Texas and Ohio State. Ugh, Buckeyes. No, not a fan, for obvious reasons. So, yeah, watch both of those games and then watch the Michigan game. So, yeah, did not sit down and actually watch Peacemaker Season 2, Episode 2 until today. Just watch that. So, yeah, this got postponed just a tad, if you will. But still staying on schedule, and don't worry, there's a Flight Chat episode that I'm going to record right after this for the feedback this particular week. But of course, before diving headfirst into this week's episode of Peacemaker, definitely want to remind everybody that you can listen to this show and my other shows at theflightcast.com or wherever you get your podcast, wherever it is. Apple Podcast, on the Flightcast YouTube page, which had a bit of a technical difficulty. Episode 218 of the main show didn't post, and it claimed that the RSS feed couldn't be retrieved. But every episode since then has been posted. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know exactly what type of glitch occurred or who do I contact, who do I talk to about that. I'm really not sure how to proceed. I may inquire further with that. But this episode should be on the Flightcast YouTube page, youtube.com/theflightcast, and also on Pandora and also Spotify. That's right. I was on Stitcher for a long time, and I keep wanting to say Stitcher instead of Spotify, but either way, it's on Spotify. This particular show and all my other shows, including the main show, the Flightcast, which is on Tuesdays, and the Flight Chat feedback show, and also what other ever episodes of Flight Box or Flight Alert or Flight Review that pop up as well. Haven't done a movie review, I think, since Fantastic Four. I got to find some non-comic book movies to talk about because, yeah, we're out of comic book movie season already. It's crazy. No more comic book movies for the rest of 2025. In fact, we won't have one until June of 2026. How about that? Supergirl is the first one on the docket for 2026. That's crazy, isn't it? Right? As far as movies, comic book movies are concerned. But plenty of comic book television between now and then. But also want to take a moment to thank all of the supporters of patreon.com/theflightcast. Hope that you're enjoying all the bonus content there. I've been getting more consistent with respect to Flight Speed episodes, which are Mondays, which is on my way home from work, and then Friday Flight episodes, which is, you know, the week that was, if you will. Most recently, I talked about the Disney Plus bump and how it's affecting the MCU and how people really need to start changing the conversation with respect to what they think that the streaming app and what streaming apps, what they believe they're doing to theatrical presentation for these films and what they're actually doing. And yeah, a bit of a more impassioned conversation with respect to that, because a lot of us are still looking antiquated and foolish with respect to our box office conversations. We even talked about that on Vodka Stream the other day. I was talking to Dave the Film Junkie and also William from Sci-Fi Center and also Phil Barker Unfiltered who's got his own YouTube channel. We were talking about that a little bit the other day on Vodka Stream as well. So yeah, that is the most recent episode of Friday Flight, plus new episodes of Flight Review, Flight Box, and Flight Report when I finally start reading comics again. And I've got a couple that are on deck that I really want to read pretty soon here. That bonus content will be posted to the Flightcast Patreon as well. Patreon.com/theflightcast. If you're a flight crew member, you will get access to, at the very least, the Flight Speed and the Friday Flight episodes. If you want access to all the content, flight officers, which is the majority of you, vast majority of you are flight officers with respect to Patreon access. So thank you so much, those of you that are supporters of patreon.com/theflightcast. Hope that you are enjoying all the bonus content and hope that you enjoy the bonus content to come in the not too distant future. All right, let's get into it. Peacemaker Season 2, Episode 2, A Man is Only as Good as His Bird. And boy, that certainly proved to be the case. A number of big things happened in this episode, despite the fact that it wasn't very action-packed. And, not that the first episode was just brimming with action, but there were definitely some more action-packed moments and definitely some more like stunt necessary moments in the first episode that ties the grind than there was in this particular episode. This was a setup episode. This was a world building episode for the show and also for a little bit of the structure of the DCU. We got another sequence. This episode starts off with another situation that throws us back briefly to the DCEU that was, or rather the DCU version of DCEU events, because we do see direct scenes, direct flashbacks to the Suicide Squad. And again, I've talked about this, like this is my hope for my dark horse, right? When they talk about who's the big characters that are going to be introduced, or going to be who are the big cameos, if you will, that we're going to see in this season of Peacemaker. And my dark horse, my hope, is Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn. I know I'm getting my hopes up too high for that, but my big point of like emphasis for that, my big hope behind that, supporting that, is the connection to the Suicide Squad. James Gunn's The Suicide Squad film. I am even more glad now that he is in charge of the DCU that he made that movie. Like at the time, it was like, okay, let's see what Gunn's version of the Suicide Squad is. Let's see what he does with the DC film. And listen, I still to this day believe I will go ahead and say, I can say this now after having seen Superman 4 times, and certainly like corroborating my thoughts on the Suicide Squad, because I'm on a bit of an island with that one. Not too big of an island, because I know there's a lot of people within the fandom and within the general audience that prefer James Gunn's Suicide Squad movie to David Ayer's film. Of course, we have not seen David Ayer's actual Suicide Squad film. Cross your fingers, hope to see that in the not too distant future, perhaps, after the DCU really gets going and rolling, if you will. But James Gunn's Suicide Squad film, in my circles, among those of us that are Snyderverse fans, I remember that episode. That was another episode of Vodka Stream where I was talking to Dave and also the people, the guys from World's Finest, Wonder, Meg, Anthony, and Joey. And we were all kind of, it wasn't adversarial by any stretch of the imagination, because we all have a healthy respect for disagreement. But I was the one stumping the most for that movie, because they were talking about the differences. Like the big thing I think for them was Amanda Waller and just how cold-blooded she was in that David Ayer film, even the Studio Squad version of it that we saw, compared to how she was portrayed in Gunn's film. And they were really like hinging on that. But for me, it was all the other stuff about the Suicide Squad that I really enjoyed. All the artistic license, the title cards, which, I know some people lately, because we heard that there was going to be a title card situation with Superman where it was going to be each day of the week. It was like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And they had put that in an early test screening and they took it out because the test audiences didn't like it. Okay. But I've seen some people try to put that back. And I had forgotten, like, the way they were doing it, like, artistically, in terms of, like, putting the title card into the scene instead of it just being a black frame with, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I'd forgotten that, yeah, he probably would have done that. Because that's what he did in the Suicide Squad. He absolutely made title cards that way. And I loved his title cards. The title cards that he put in that movie were gorgeous and phenomenal. And to me, were indicative of his real style, what he would have wanted to do in Guardians of the Galaxy films, but didn't necessarily have the freedom to do that because it was all about Feige being in the edit room and Feige being in charge. And listen, understandably so, because Marvel Studios, that is Kevin Feige's domain, and like he is the boss, so he does what he does in that regard. But James Gunn is the boss now, and to me, I would say that between the Suicide Squad and Superman, I think James Gunn's DC films are superior, subjectively speaking, to his Marvel films. I do. And so basically I'm saying that the Suicide Squad and Superman, I believe, are better, subjectively speaking, than the Guardians trilogy and the holiday special, which I still have not seen. And yeah, there is some subjective bias with that because I'm a DC fan first. That's fine. For whichever. I'm not saying I don't like all of his work. I mean, I still have my, lower thoughts, if you will, with respect to Guardians Volume 2, but I love 1 and 3. But no, I think that the freedom inherent in his storytelling is most on display with his DC work, and the Suicide Squad was certainly part of that. And so when he brought in elements and characters into the Suicide Squad, and then became, the co-head, the creative head of DC Studios, the hope is, okay, how many of those connective tissues, how many of those threads and characters is he going to bring into the DCU, considering that, as he has now publicly said about within the last week or so, the DCEU was so loosely connected to the Suicide Squad. Like what he did with that movie and also Peacemaker season 1, I mean, has really loose connections to the DCEU, and certainly not to the Snyderverse connection or the Snyderverse part of the DCEU. Like those first 6 movies, and I do count through Aquaman, and we talked about that as well on Vodka Stream the other day. Like those first 6 movies in the DCEU, they really don't. They're kind of by themselves. Actually, they're very much by themselves. And then there's a smattering of very loose connections, if any at all, in the movies after that under the Walter Hamada era. And so the Suicide Squad is certainly, that and Peacemaker season 1 are certainly under the Hamada era. And there's some of the bright spots in the Hamada era, but like Gunn's freedom and what he can do with those characters and with those events, pretty much like it's at his disposal. And here we see that again. Like we saw what he did in episode 1 of this season, where he changed the Justice League to the Justice Gang, which completely makes sense because it's the DCU version of things. And now here we have it. He is retaining canonically in the DCU, identical to the DCEU, Christopher Smith, aka Peacemaker, kills Rick Flag Jr., right? Joel Kinnaman's Rick Flag Jr., who we do see. Like we see those scenes from the Suicide Squad all together. So now the one cool thing about this marketing wise is if somebody got into this, like through Superman, or if they got into it through Peacemaker, and they've never seen the Suicide Squad for whatever reason, and they see that and they're like, wait, when did that happen? Oh, that happened in the Suicide Squad. Which of course, when you get to the end of this episode, that's what HBO Max recommends, like the suggested, hey, if you like this, then you'll like the Suicide Squad movie. And amazingly, there's a cast picture of everybody from the Suicide Squad that is very similar to the cast at the end of the dance routine for the Peacemaker season 2 opening credits, which I didn't really talk about last week because it's a new dance number. It's a new musical number that they're doing the dance routine to. It's not Do You Want to Taste It anymore. It's Oh Lord by Foxy Shazam that the cast is all doing a major number to in that regard. So the cool thing about that, I think, is that anybody out there that for whatever reason didn't see the Suicide Squad and is just coming into the DCU proper, like starting with Superman or even with Creature Commandos, this is now an opportunity for them to see the Suicide Squad on HBO Max, and more than likely they're going to think, oh, well, this perfectly fits into the DCU, because it does. It really does perfectly fit into the DCU, because it's Gunn's style, it's his sensibilities, and everything that happens in that movie fits very well, very neatly into the tone and tenor of the DCU, whether it's Superman or Peacemaker in that regard, right? And Superman didn't make any like connections to that event, but now we're seeing DCU connections to what happened with Starro in that particular movie in that regard. And here it is directly. And the whole point of it here is that this is Frank Grillo's Rick Flag Sr., who we were introduced to in Creature Commandos and certainly in Superman, learning how his son Rick Flag Jr. actually died, and basically the beginning of his vendetta towards Peacemaker, right? Like him taking control of Argus, ordering Economos to send him the files, and now learning the truth about how Peacemaker killed his son. So yeah, and we knew that was going to be a big thing. We knew that was going to be a giant point of contention this season, and that they were going to have to come to grips with that, and that's where this starts, an 8-month flashback, if you will, before current events to start off this episode. And I just like the inclusion of the footage from the Suicide Squad, because again, it helps hold out hope. And you know what? Not just for Margot Robbie coming back as Harley Quinn, but also Idris Elba coming back as Bloodsport, and any other characters that they may wish to bring back that were in that movie, if you will. Obviously, there have been a few that, are other, like Sean Gunn, for example. He won't be Weasel. I mean, he could be Weasel, but he's currently Maxwell Lord at the moment in this DCU. And Nathan Fillion, of course, is now Guy Gardner, Green Lantern, instead of the character that he played in the Suicide Squad, which was TDK, the detachable kid, who, of course, did not necessarily make it through the whole film. In case, spoiler alert for a movie that came out 4 years ago, I'm pretty sure the majority of you that listen to this show have seen it. But yeah, he was not part of the main group in Corto Maltese. He was part of the other group, if you will. So yeah, a few changes here and there, if you will. But no, I think that's cool. I like when those connections to Gunn's projects in the looser DCEU are made, because that just further cements how easy it is for him to bring those loosely connected DCEU projects into the DCU world. And that's a big part of setup. That's a big setup to see, the orchestration of Flag Senior's anger and his, need for retribution and vengeance towards Peacemaker. So that's a big deal. But the majority of this episode is all about emotional turmoil and all about our cast and dealing with the upheaval, if you will. This is an emotional setup episode. This is a character building episode, if you will. And really the crux of this episode is not only to further think everybody else, all of the 11th Street kids' emotional storylines, but also to really push Peacemaker into really like immersing himself in that other universe that he found, where his dad's alive and where his brother's alive and all that, right? Like it's one of those things where you need to push him further. It can't simply be like as like flawed and as fragile as he is, and as complicated as his character is. You need more than just the first episode of this season to be able to push him into that. And I at first it was like, okay, I figure, is he going to jump into it quickly? No, they decided to give him an episode of build up, if you will, right? It isn't just the fact that he got soundly rejected by the Justice Gang. It isn't just the fact that he hates his life and is wishing for something better. No, there's further development. We get an episode further of development, right? It's even not even just about the fact that like he killed his other self. Like initially, and I do like the fact that the self-defense, right? In terms of his killing his other self, right? Like, I like the fact that initially he doesn't even think about taking the other self's place. He's just hiding the body and like, I'm never going back there again. I don't want them to know because they'll come after me and that type of deal, right? And so he calls Vigilante Adrian Chase over to help him, with the bone saws and help him cut up the body and, incinerate it in the pocket dimension, that particular pocket dimension universe, which is crazy to think. We've got like two pocket dimension universes, if you will. This one is a multiverse carrier, and this one is far more stable than Lex Luthor's pocket dimension universe. And his, of course, isn't multiversal. This one is in that regard. So intriguing that we have those particular differences between the similar situations, if you will. But either way, like that's initially what he's doing, and he is clinging to the friendships that he's got. But this other world is luring him in a major way, right? Like, and he's definitely got this thing for Harcourt, and that's like the major, like like the romantic subplot or whatnot. He's had a thing for Harcourt since season 1, and he's definitely got a thing for her now. And the idea that she's in a very self-destructive place and is not even remotely thinking about being with him, at least not in a serious sense. She may have inclinations and she may have some feelings here and there, maybe even some sexual tension between the two of them, but she is not willing to act on it whatsoever. And she's definitely in, tough guy bravado, if you will, trying to play it off like, no, there's at one point where she tells him, I'm not nearly as effed up as you are, Chris. Right. And that's like the last rejection. And I kind of wondered if that was going to be the case, because he's got that phone, and he sees all the phone from his other, the one that he killed from the other universe. And he sees, her contact information in there, scrolls through all the pictures, right? And it's just like, well, if he can't have Harcourt in his own reality, maybe he can have her in this other reality. And that's definitely like a motivation. That's a motivating factor, something that kind of pushes him towards that other universe for sure. That, that definitely can be a motivator, especially for somebody like him. He's tried everything else. He's tried getting drunk. He's tried, the hedonism of the orgy, which, the aftermath of the orgy is still in his apartment in this episode, where it's like, okay, people haven't gone home. It's like the day after, and everybody's just still naked, right? And just a woman, full frontal naked woman in the hallway, right? Hey, can you please get everybody out of here? It's like, yeah, sure. And it's like, okay, just all that going down as he brings Adrian into his place to help him cut up the body in the pocket universe. So we see the vulnerable place that he's at, in this episode, and just what really is going to lead him down that path to sink into the other universe for sure. And you get it. You understand it, because he's not in a great place at this point. And he also learns the truth from Adebayo about how he is being monitored. He doesn't know that it's Economos, though, that is monitoring him. And we also, it's established also that like everybody's kind of keeping secrets from one another, right? Like Chris doesn't know that Economos is the one that's watching him. Adebayo does know, right? Like, but she's the only one that knows. And there are others who don't know that, like, he's been, like, Vigilante doesn't know that he's been hanging out with Adebayo, right? Like, everybody's kind of keeping secrets from one another, and you see the vulnerability of all the 11th Street kids at this point. There's that really, like, tough scene between Adebayo and her girlfriend, where she goes in, and it's the quintessential story of, okay, she still got keys to the place, but she doesn't announce herself, she doesn't knock, she just comes right in. And of course, the girlfriend is not having that at all, and it's a real painful conversation, where Leota has to deal with just still dealing with the anger and the saltiness, if you will, from her ex, who is just not willing. It actually Calder said that she broke into her apartment. It's like, damn, that was just harsh, and it was painful. And of course, there's two sides to the situation, but that's one of those where the empathy is in Adebayo's court for this. Like, she's clearly the one not dealing nearly as well with this breakup, and they're both in pain, they're both handling it, but she's the one that's not being angry. She's the one that's like openly hurt, if you will, like emotionally, like conflicted, or taken down a peg, or a couple of pegs, if you will, with respect to this situation. So you see that, and then the whole thing with Economos, and the situation that they've got him in, where like he is keeping the secret that he's the one monitoring Peacemaker. And Flag has decided, well, we're going to throw another agent at him, to keep an eye over him. And this is where we get to the character introduction. And Tim Meadows in this particular show is like, okay, I don't like you. I don't like your character. And I don't like how your character behaves. But once again, that's the point. Because this dude is supposed to be arrogant, like Saturday Night Live relic from the 80s. I know they're doing that on purpose. I know they are. I know that purposely they're making him out of touch and out of date. And he's basically playing a version of the character he would have played in Saturday Night Live when he was a member of the SNL cast way back in the day. What was it, like early 80s, late 80s, early 90s, I believe, is when Tim Meadows was a part of that cast. And this is, it's part of his humor. It's what he does, right? I've never seen The Ladies Man, but this is just, it's in his wheelhouse to play a character like this. I just don't like the character. But that's the point. You're not supposed to like this character. This character is supposed to be a jerk. This character is supposed to be non-PC, calling, the agents are supposed to be scrubbing Peacemaker's house. He calls the one Encino Man and another one Pony Boy, and he calls the one girl Titties. And it's like, okay, he's intentionally being politically incorrect because he doesn't give a shit. He's like, how else am I supposed to identify you? He's old school. He's the old school that is unwilling to adjust whatsoever to like modern sensibilities and doesn't give a shit about people's sensitivity. He's going to do and say what he wants to do and say based on how he feels. It's a boomer mentality. It's very much a boomer mentality stereotypically in that regard. And he's meant to be that. He's meant to be the boomer in this case, dealing with the younger agents that are, like, what's your deal, dude? Seriously, piss off, that type of deal, right? Like, that's the point of his character. And he's the one that's supposed to be watching over Economos, babysitting him essentially, because Flag doesn't trust him when dealing with Peacemaker, and you get it. And he's there to intentionally make Economos uncomfortable, calling him ginger cool and like, cracking all these jokes and cracking wise and being a smartass in front of him. That's to make Economos uncomfortable. He's doing that on purpose, like to throw him off balance, because that's what machismo, alpha dogs who aren't really alpha dogs because they tell people that they're alpha dogs. And if you have to tell somebody that you're an alpha dog, you are beta as shit in that regard, right? There's nothing alpha about you whatsoever if you have to tell people that. But that's how he's acting. He's acting like he's tough shit, big dog, to make Economos uncomfortable. And it's working. Like, it works for what it is, but it's meant to be like comic relief, and it's meant to be played for laughs and a joke, and it's meant to be a character that you're not supposed to like. I totally get that. So yeah, when Eagly kicks everybody's ass, like in the middle of the scene where they're trying to scrub it, and also like, okay, the order to scrub Peacemaker's home, it's like, okay, you're searching for shit, but you just hired thugs. You just hired mercenaries, essentially, with guns that are going to go in there and kick ass in that regard. And I get that the one dude had the scanner and they were about to go in the room and discover the pocket universe. And, of course, Eagly intervened very hilariously and very effectively. And you have to remember, in a universe like this, a bald eagle, as well trained as Eagly, would kick ass the way that he did, right? But, of course, they had to give Tim Meadows' character that whole bird blindness thing. And I did see this posted on Threads, bird blindness here, bird blind. I'm like, bird blindness? So I'm like, does that have to do with Eagly? Like, is there some type of thing where, like, that he's blind or whatever? No, it's the idea that Tim Meadows' character, whose name clearly I have not remembered whatsoever. Langston Fleury. Right, Langston Fleury, that's his name. And it's funny. I'm a hockey fan, so when I see the name Fleury, I immediately think of Theo Fleury from the Calgary Flames, right? For those of you who are hockey fans at all. But yeah, like his character having this bird blindness where he can't tell one bird from the other. I mean, like, I get the joke, and it's like, okay, that's weird. I don't want to make it seem like his character bothers me, but I know I've seen like AV Club and like superherohype.com. I see all these articles about how hilarious his character was this week, and I'm like, oh, okay, hey, that's funny to you. To me, it was awkward. It's one of those parts of humor that like doesn't necessarily like hit with me. Like, I didn't think it was terribly hilarious, but again, as subjective as humor is, it didn't take me out of the episode because again, I understand the point of his character. I understand why his character behaves the way that he does and what he's trying to do and what his place in this show is supposed to be. But yeah, the bird blindness was supposed to totally help disarm him so that Eagly could kick all their asses. And that part was awesome. That part was hilarious and very, like, that was action packed in that regard. The whole team of these mercenaries, these random mercenaries are getting their asses handed to them. One dude lost an eye as a result of Eagly's self-defense of the home. And I mean, the home was destroyed enough that, like, I'm thinking, okay, like, how are they going to be able to know? Chris is going to know. Peacemaker is going to know that they were in there. And he already knows he's being watched because Adebayo's warned him. Adebayo's also warned him that Flag Sr. knows that he killed his son. So it's like, all right, the things are getting worse. The situation is getting more untenable for Peacemaker, like, as, the time goes on in that regard. And so after Harcourt ultimately rejects him, like, like the whole line of my life is not nearly as effed up as yours is, Chris. Like, that's when he gets like completely shit-faced drunk. And man, he would have needed to drink, like, at his body size, he would have needed to drink a shitload of Bud Lights, because Bud Lights do not get you that buzz, not that few of them. So he would have had to drink a whole lot of that. Like, to me, that was a little unbelievable. It's like, okay, no, where's the liquor? Like, where's the bottle of booze? Like, where's the vodka? Where's the rum? Where's the Jack? Like where's what he actually drank that got him as drunk as he was when he came home, to the point where he didn't notice any of the damage. He just thought Eagly, messed shit up around the house in that regard, right? And he, I really do like the CGI around Eagly, like that one scene where he's hugging Eagly and trying to get and giving him the noogie, and Eagly flies away. Like that was good. That was really good. It's really good CGI. Like the CGI for Eagly, the visual effects for Eagly, I really like. I think they did a really strong job with those visual effects for Eagly in that regard. So I have no issues visually with respect to any of that. But yeah, when he gets home and is that drunk, and then you just see like the text conversation, like he goes to send Harcourt, the other Harcourt from the other universe, a message, saying, hey, because he's reaching out to somebody. And this is where it's like, okay, here we go. Here goes the descent. He's been brought to an even lower place, emotionally speaking, than he was at the end of the first episode of this season. So now, he sends that message, and of course not delivered because, yeah, that's in a totally other universe. So of course, what's he going to do? He's going to go into the other universe to try and contact Harcourt, and he's drunk. So it's like, oh no, he's doing this in a drunken stupor. But what do they always say about being drunk? A drunken mouth speaks a sober heart. So in his heart, he wants to do this. He absolutely wants to do this. He wants to go find that Harcourt. He wants to go and be a part of that universe. He was like initially hiding it because he accidentally killed himself, and that really messed him up in that regard from that universe. But now he's like, okay, let's go do this. And when he walks into that other universe, he overhears his father and his brother Keith, like in the distance. They can't find him. They're looking for him. He's disappeared again. You don't think it's those drugs again, do you? Right. Okay. So clearly the Peacemaker in that particular universe had a drug problem, and he's disappeared before, but now they're just not certain where he is, but they're legitimately wondering where in the hell he is, right? So there's more of the caring, and there's more of that energy that he saw in that, when he first interacted with them, like resurfacing itself, if you will. And, obviously he's back in range, cell phone range of the message that he sent the other Harcourt. So she responds back with a hey. And then, of course, and I love the way that this was shot, because any one of us has been in this position, especially if you have an iPhone, where you see the ... the bubble with the three dots, the ellipsis, indicating that the other person is typing a response, right? And so he stands there rather, and drunkenly he's waiting for the response from her. And it's like, okay, what is she going to send back? It's like that anticipation. What is the message they're about to respond to me with? And then it just turns into a broken heart. She sent him a broken heart emoji. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, here we go. Here we go. He's about to dive in further. Because what does that signify? What does that suggest? A broken heart emoji from the other Harcourt. To me, it suggests that clearly that Peacemaker, the Christopher Smith in that universe, broke up with her. And she is looking to rekindle. She wants to get back together, right? And Keith even suggested later, like in the first episode, like, I think you should, that you should give that one another shot. So it sounds like that Peacemaker made the decision to break up with Harcourt. And the question is why, right? Because here's the thing. We talked a little bit about this on Vodka Stream the other night as well, is as much as this other universe seems to be the perfect one for Chris to go into, there's got to be some bullshit. There's got to be something underlying. There's something underneath, lying in the weeds. There's something in the underbelly of this that is not good, that is not something that he wants to uncover, that when he finds out what it is, it's really going to be like, oh, no, this is not good at all. I know there's some shadiness, there's something like between the three of them together, are they all racist, or are they all Nazis, or are they all just doing nefarious shit, or are the dad and the brother involved in nefarious shit, or was that other Chris Peacemaker, like, was he involved in some nefarious shit, whatever it was, right? And did that have anything to do with why he broke up with Harcourt? Because again, it just seems to me that he's the one that broke up with her, and she wants to rekindle things. She wants to resume things. And it's like, okay, dude, the door is wide open for you to do this, and he's going to walk all the way through it and pursue that in that regard. And it just seems to me that, like, yeah, that's where we're headed with this. And he's going to have that emotional high, right? This idea of, hey, my dad's here and he loves me. My brother's here and he loves me. And now I'm about to get the girl that I really want. I'm about to get the girl of my dreams, the one that I really, truly want. You even see that in the preview for the next episode, where it seems like he's going to get not only all of that, but also the admiration and the recognition that he's always wanted from the public. There's even a shot of that in the preview for next week's Peacemaker episode, where it's just like, and he even says, like, best dimension ever, right? Like, and we saw that in the trailers as well. And, you just sit there wondering, okay, this is all going to seem well and great, like, initially. And is it going to be a case where he just decides to start living there? Or is it really going to be like a drug for him, where he goes there when he needs to feel better? That's going to become his escape, right? The drugs didn't work. The orgy didn't work. Getting drunk didn't work. So now this pocket universe is going to be this alternate reality, this alternate universe, this multiverse is going to be his drug of choice to escape, to feel better about his actual life. And he's going to keep going back to it and going back to it until he finally just decides at some point this season, I ain't coming back. I'm going to be here. Like, this is going to be where I reside for the rest of my days in that regard. Like, is he going to do that? You get that sense. I mean, it's certainly a story that we have seen before. It's certainly a setup that we've seen before. Like, you're given the perfect life. It's almost like another variant of, like, For the Man Who Has Everything, which is a story I have not read, but obviously I've seen interpretations of it. The whole Black Mercy thing with Superman. There's a Supergirl interpretation of it, and I've heard of other interpretations. I think that there's also a Krypton interpretation of it, which, just briefly, talking about DC TV for a second, I saw a YouTube video. I was recommended a YouTube video that was like, some nerd channel that made a video about that weird Superman show that nobody watched. That was the title of the video. And I immediately was like, yeah, ignore, and I don't wish to see anything else from that content creator. Because, yeah, you will not disrespect Krypton from afar. I don't give a shit who you are. I don't care that I don't know you. Do not disrespect Krypton. Just a little brief side note with respect to that. But they did a Black Mercy storyline as well, which was crazy. Crazy and gruesome, and I really enjoyed it. But, man, it was something else as far as all that goes. But I think this is like the Peacemaker, like, version of that. This is the James Gunn Peacemaker version of that type of a storyline, for the man who wants everything and that type of deal, and or for the man who has everything, that type of deal. So yeah, it will be intriguing to see how this evolves and how Peacemaker treats this. going forward, and just how entrenched in this other universe he becomes, and how much he uses it as a drug to escape the reality of his real life, and that's something that I really do appreciate about this character, is that, however one-dimensional he might have appeared in the Suicide Squad, they've definitely given him extra added dimensions, right? For all the people that were like, out of all the characters that you could have made a spin-off show from, from that movie, for Peacemaker to be the one, it's just like, oh, well, of course James Gunn would pick that character. And then people probably to this day still asking, why is there a Peacemaker show? Who asked for that? Well, James Gunn clearly did, and the first season was a critical success. This season so far, through the first 5 episodes, not including the 3 that he won't show people because he's keeping them close to the chest, because apparently they are big, huge, twisty episodes that are going to really shake the core and the foundations of the DCU going forward. Like, yeah, he's going to explore the emotional complexities of this particular character, and John Cena has done a really good job of displaying that range and displaying those complexities through season 1 in the DCEU into season 2 in the DCU proper, if you will. So yeah, really, really dig what they're doing so far with this character and how they're going with that. So yeah, very intrigued to see how the rest of this evolves for this season going forward, and where we're at. We're 2 episodes in, and we've got 6 left. Certainly we've got 3 left until we hit the mid-range, if you will, which will probably be close to the tail end of September is when we'll hit that mid-range, and then we'll see exactly, what happens in those last 3 episodes that James Gunn kept even from the press in that regard, and see how this season sticks the landing and how it transitions into the rest of the DCU going forward, if you will. But yeah, so far, so good. I mean, it's really picking up where last season left off, and you give us some more, like direct and a bit more action in that first episode, and then you give us a character building second episode. Yeah, absolutely. This is in James Gunn's wheelhouse. This is what he does, and now, we're going to hit the ground running as far as, this other dimension stuff in the third episode. So definitely looking forward to that here in this upcoming week as we go on forward here, talking about Peacemaker Season 2 for the DCU. And I think that'll do it for my thoughts this week on Peacemaker Season 2, Episode 2, A Man is Only as Good as His Bird. So as we look forward to Episode 3 this upcoming week, I want to thank you so much for joining me here for this episode of Flight Box for my thoughts on Peacemaker Season 2. If you have any thoughts that you want to contribute with respect to this particular episode of Peacemaker, or you have any thoughts with respect to movies, TV, and other sort of media that you want to join the Flight Chat conversation with, you know where to find me on Threads and on Instagram at the Flightcast, on Blue Sky at Flightcast. You can comment on the posting for this particular episode on the Flightcast YouTube page at youtube.com/theflightcast. There's also the Flightcast Facebook page, and of course I can be reached by email at ray@theflightcast.com. All right, take care, stay safe out there, have a great week, and I will see you all next time. Take it easy.